Okay, episode 357 of Global from Asia, globalfromasia.com/ocean-freight-madness. And we have a logistics expert here sharing with us today what's been going on. And let's do this. I mean, it's a very hot topic, so enjoy.
Welcome to the Global from Asia podcast, where the daunting process of running an international business is broken down into straight up actionable advice. And now, your host, Michael Michelini.
Episode 357 here shows, plus, the Gladiator, so, almost like really 400 something shows. And this is a topic, we talked about it at the Cross-Border Matchmaker a bit. Nick's been on the show in the past. You can check it out in our show notes. We'll link it up to the previous episode. He did his research in advance, plus he works with people all the time with this. I share some of my own hardships and issues about the ocean freight. It's like, there's been so much craziness with cross-border trade, with trade wars, the Hong Kong unrest, now we're doing this COVID for years. And one of the horrible things is the ocean freight nightmare. And people spending the same as like a nice car for sending a container. So realize you're not alone. Everybody's dealing with this. I know some of you, I've even had a friend I heard had a mental breakdown lately. And really, it's been really stressful for all of us. So don't think you're alone. We're all getting dealt with a lot of these difficult challenges, and let's try to get through this, So let's dive into the show. Nick Bartlett talking about this ocean freight madness. Thank you to our sponsor, Mercury.com. They help a lot of people, especially nowadays, can't get to the U.S. to apply in person for a bank account. We've used this multiple times for various joint ventures and businesses here in the Global from Asia community. So I feel very confident to say they're a great one to check out. No application fee, so what do you have to lose? And plus a little bonus if you use our GFA link, globalfromasia.com/Mercury. Thank you for supporting the show, and tell them GFA sent you. Thank you, everybody, for choosing to listen to or watch a Global from Asia podcast. We had Nick on the show. I don't know, years are turning, time is flying. It must have been at least a few years ago now, but
yeah, I think probably, Mike, it was probably 2016, maybe 2016, wow. 2017, maybe.
Amazing.
We've been trading for around a year or so, I think. So that tells me kind of in the 16, maybe early 17.
Wow. Yeah, time's flying. I mean, we've been doing these podcasts for a long time, and
you don't look any younger, and I look about 5 years older.
I just got my haircut. These Chinese barbers, sometimes I take a picture. I actually have a photo. I make a blog, mikesblog.com/haircut, and I show him, but he went a little. I said he didn't. He went too short on the. I think maybe he meant short, but.
That's probably when it would help if you just had a bit more Chinese, right?
I thought I was kind of checked out of China. I mean, I thought
fair enough.
It's the mafia.
I think everyone thought you were free. You were free, and then and now you're back.
They're just pulling me back, man.
Just flowing you right back.
I thought I got out of here, man. I thought I served my time, man. But anyway, so it's always a pleasure.
Your time will come again. It'll come again. Don't worry. It'll come.
We'll see. Yeah, I mean, we're having a good. Almost felt like we should have been recording the last 5 or so minutes, but we'll have a great conversation today. So, Nick Bartlett, you're a logistics guy, I go-to person. We go to a lot, and you had a great. The first episode you were on was really insightful. Got great feedback on that, and this one a little bit more timely with COVID, but we're just getting into almost Q3. There's obviously still Christmas. Hopefully we're going to have a good Q4 for e-com and, retail. Mm-hmm. So obviously everybody's starting to get these containers out, and I don't know. I mean, it's like the rates are insane. So I'm sure listeners are curious of any kind of insights. I even have some of my own issues I can personally ask you, but yeah, I mean, do you want to give a quick background about yourself before we dive into the
Yeah, sure. So my name's Nick Bartlett. I'm the director of CBRP Logistics. We're a Hong Kong-based logistics 4PL operator throughout Asia, and sort of focusing on customers, that are traditionally kind of based in the West with production in the East, and then sort of selling back to the West. our focus or our operations kind of go right across B2B and B2C operations for logistics. So we work with a range of kind of traditional B2B customers, guys that work on ocean freight, traditional 3PL and sort of selling into big sort of big box retailers, right through to sort of supporting more general sort of brands and on the sort of e-commerce logistics side. So we've been trading out of Hong Kong since 2015 and sort of grown our team, and we're now sort of operating right across Asia Pacific from an operational perspective, and we're moving goods all around the world, which is pretty good fun. But COVID's definitely presented lots of challenges for us as a business, and certainly given us lots of pretty fast learnings in a pretty unprecedented time. So hopefully there'll be a few things I can share that will give some insight, and also just maybe might make everyone feel a little bit better too. So, certainly not alone. This is certainly a pretty scary time in the context of the damage it's having on business, and actually if you look right down to the level it's having right on the consumer, and we're all going to feel that in the times to come.
Agreed, totally. Yeah, just to reiterate what you said, I mean, I've tried to say this in some other episodes, especially during the COVID, is we're not alone. I mean, everybody's getting sticker shocked with rate increases, it was,
everyone. Even the biggest of the players in the market are coming to anyone and everyone to try and put a solution to this problem. So we're seeing it right throughout the sort of supply chain and right throughout the customer size as well.
It's unbelievable. So where to start? Basically, maybe it is when did this start? I mean, I remember when it was the height of it, in my, the scary height for me at least was mid-March, like Friday the 13th, March 2020. Yeah. And that's when I felt like the world really started to shut down. And that was when Amazon closed around, I think it was that exact day, their warehouse started closed down, receiving non-essential. That scared a ton of us. We had, at that time, Amazon business I was with had containers getting, loaded up in China at that time. And we were like, where are we going to send this container now? I think if you look kind of back to the sort of timeline of events, you'd probably say that, everyone thought initially this was just a China problem, right? Everyone kind of thought, hey, this is just a thing that's lingering around in South China, and I'm sure it'll disappear and someone will get on top of it. And the world kind of proceeded to be normal. And then if you kind of fast forward, obviously it did escalate very quickly to that kind of around that March time where it started to escalate into foreign markets. If you look at what happened to logistics, it was a bit of a delayed effect because you obviously had, normal production going on, production cycle shipping kind of all happening. Then it sort of got to kind of February, March, April, May onwards, and then you started to slowly start seeing the impact, right? And I think if you tear it all back and you think, okay, what's actually happened? Safe to say a lot has happened, and the sort of fallout or the flow out effect of this whole COVID pandemic has certainly had a big shake up on the shipping industry. And if you look at it in the context of ocean freight, you've got sort of the perfect storm of everything you didn't want to happen happening. So you've got the pandemic itself, which is in turn has a flow down effect to things like labour shortages at the port or warehouses not operating. Then you have more cases of COVID, which then spirals it out of control. Then you have a whole bunch of slump in production because everyone freaks out and says, oh, down your tools, we don't want to do anything more because we're all worried about what's going to happen. Then you've got all the suppliers on the ocean freight side, so the traditional carriers, the Maersks and the Evergreens and the EMCs, who are then saying, okay, well, hold on a minute. Production's dropping. Let's pull back. Let's make some smart economical choices here around how we run our fleet. Let's cancel a whole bunch of sailings. Let's make sure that we're not freaking out and not, rising our own costs whilst production drops. And then you sort of fast forward another kind of 6-7 months and the opposite starts happening. So you start seeing a huge surge in production resources. Everyone slowly starts to go back to factories and working. And then you see the ocean line is just very much remaining the same, sort of applying that same sort of pressure around, how they operate their business, which is we still don't know what the outlook's going to be. Let's be conservative. Let's only run a certain amount of boats. Let's not bring back, full loads of boats coming back out of the US back into China. And then this sort of snowball effect of all of these things, from labour shortages to port congestions to the planning by the carriers that they're doing themselves around how much space and availability they're giving. Then you put the Suez Canal on top of it. That then happened.
where a boat goes sideways in the canal and
Sideways,
decides to sit there for a few weeks and then pays $1 billion to get it out. At the end, and it's farcical and it's almost unbelievable. You probably wouldn't read about this sort of thing in terms of just how it's played out. And then what's happened, obviously, as that timeline has progressed and all of these things have happened, it's just gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. And the perfect storm of all these elements is actually, created now an all-time high shipping cost, exponentially higher than it ever has been historically, and carriers that in a very, very strong pocket of profitability that are taking complete control of the situation. Reports of going from kind of 50 million in Q1 2020 to doing sort of 2 billion in 2021 Q1. So you are looking at seriously I guess you would say highly fortuitous people who have taken taken advantage of the situation and made it work for them. But these perfect storms certainly had a much bigger impact on the actual sort of customers themselves and the impact it has on their businesses. But yeah, that's sort of like in a nutshell, kind of you look right back to when it started right through to now. It's kind of this ultimate perfect storm of just shit that's happened. And everybody's been knocked off the table, so to speak. Everyone's been knocked down and everybody's trying to figure a way to get back up and find their place in this new world. And it's really hard, for us as a provider to, try and, coordinate and facilitate all of these changes that are going on. Obviously, we do our very best at making sure that we give customers as much flex and as many options as possible. But, at the same time, we also only have a certain degree of control as well, right? So, everybody in our sort of that plays the role that we play in the industry certainly are doing that. But right now, if you've got a good logistics partner, then hold on to them. But certainly if you don't have one, this is certainly the time that the true colors of your providers will be showing, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like some examples, I don't know, I've talked about a little bit on the show. I've been embarrassed to bring it up lately, but I was in the process of launching a new brand on Amazon and I partnered with the factory in Thailand. I don't know if we actually made the brands, we have the, trademark and the packaging and made production. And he's, basically it's like a container sitting in Thailand right now in factory. I think normally a container to East Coast US, I don't know, you probably know. I don't know. He's a factory owner.
Yeah, at the moment, at the moment, eastbound, sort of westbound from the east, you're sort of looking at, a very, very conservative, low price around $15,000 to $20,000 US.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's 20.
Yeah, and and if you look, before COVID, that price was around $1,500 to $2,000.
Exactly.
So even if you just look at it solely for the numbers for which they are being presented, $1,500 to $15,000 is pretty much the jump. And, for any small business carrying a cargo with, let's say, carrying one container or carrying 100 containers with an average box value of, say, 15,000 US, or even 20 or 30 or even 50, it doesn't matter, right? Because your cost base is just exponentially creeped up. And as a result, who's going to pay for that difference? I mean, are you going to keep shipping stuff at a break even or a loss, or are you just not going to ship it?
Yeah.
So this whole thing's going to die. It's got to tail out at some point. There's got to be a bit of a reverse moment's got to come in where shippers just say, you know what, I'm actually better not shipping it than I am shipping it. And then eventually that might draw the demand down, and that might get the shipping lines to realize, okay, actually maybe our customers are smarter than we give them credit for. Let's readjust our pricing and get more in line with where the market might sit. But right now, mate, they are riding a very, very big pocket of profitability, and it's scary.
So then it's basically to those major carriers. Is that the people to blame?
Yeah. So there are a few things that are driving. There are a few things that are driving the cost up, right? There's obviously what is sort of called what they sort of call space management, or sort of, I guess availability of sailings is kind of one. So naturally, in a normal environment, the carriers would operate, their fleet at 100% completely optimized. But because of the uncertainty that COVID created, they pulled some of that availability back, because they thought it would be smarter to run full boats rather than half boats in and around the world, right? So, it makes economical sense as to why they did that. But then as demands come back, they haven't necessarily adjusted their own space management, if you like. And they've kind of continued to go, hey, you know what, actually, we were getting 1,500 boxes before, Now we're getting 8 or 10 or 15. This is a much better business for us. Let's stay in this business. Let's not go back to the old business. So look, I get it, right? I get it. And, you have to remember that for a very, very long period of time, these carriers, the big boys, they have run very lean margin businesses. So I get it, right? This is their opportunity to cash in. But the scary thing is it's completely unregulated, right? So you don't have anyone regulating what the shipping lines can do. And you've only got really, half a dozen carriers in the world. So, it's almost monopolistic in the sense that they operate in alliances. It's a bit like the airlines, how they kind of code share with each other, and they sort of all agree kind of behind closed doors, kind of what sort of how it might play out. So that is one thing that's seriously driving the price up. And that's obviously created this, huge spike in demand, but then obviously a limited amount of sailing space that you can get. Then the second big issue is that there's a real shortage of containers coming back into Asia.
Yeah.
And so, you can get a booking and it's all good. To give context to this, before COVID, you could place a booking within about 10 to 14 days and get a sailing within that period out of China, to kind of give you context. Now you're looking at a minimum of kind of 4 to 6 weeks, and then you're still not even guaranteed it until a week before the sailing date anyway. Mm-hmm. And in that case, if the carrier gets a higher price for your booking, they'll just bump you and give it to someone else. So what's become, what was a really fairly traded transaction has actually now become almost like commoditized. It's almost like they're just buying and selling it at the highest price. And that's what I mean about it being a little bit farcical. It's hard to believe that you can actually operate like that. This is when you look at the volume that comes out of China, and you look at the reliance that China has on global trade and getting stuff into supermarket and getting stuff into people's homes, it's scary just to sort of think how much impact that these guys are having, this very small group of people are actually having on what's become. Obviously there are things outside of their control, that also does contribute to price, things like port congestions, which the carriers don't they don't run all the ports in the world. So there are other factors that are driving it up, but those two kind of main things are kind of what's sort of driving that price up, and it's certainly scary at just how high it's going.
In fact, I think a lot of our audience is probably the hardest hit, because the small business, I don't like to say small, but the average seller, because I think the bigger ones can absorb it more, right? Than potentially. Yeah,
but you know what, Mike? Even the big guys are going to feel this really hard. I mean, I totally agree. For the small guys, this is going to potentially wipe a huge amount of them out. So you really hope at that point that local government and these specific customers from these different parts of the world hopefully get support in other ways from external methods to keep them alive. But certainly, even for the big boys, that they might move the volume, but sometimes their margins can be slim too, right? So if you are, like I said earlier, if you're moving a box and it's worth $50,000 US and your shipping cost is costing you 21 or 25 or 15, your margins have just taken a significant sort of, if you look at it at a per unit basis. Of course, they can probably carry the capital a lot further, the bigger boys, but in the end of the day, like, everything's still measured on unit basis margin and profitability, right? So if you look at some of the world's biggest producers of, whether it be electronics or toys or, anything in the FMCG space, like, they might just start saying, actually, like, let's just wait till this thing cools off and then we'll make our product available again, because it's not worth it for us to take that. Or alternatively, and what we're already seeing is a lot of not a lot, but some of the bigger box retailers are starting to push that price through to the customer. And at the end of the day, the biggest victim in this whole thing is the consumer.
Agreed.
Because we will pay it, right? And these prices that they were before COVID, we're not going back to those prices. Those days are, in my view, are pretty done. Because now that there's, the ocean liners have clearly ascertained that there's enough demand to operate at a higher price point, and people are willing to pay for it. That's the crazy thing. You would think maybe with demand and prices surging, that demand for containers might actually drop off. But actually, everyone's kept paying it. So what's scary is that because everyone keeps paying it, the price keeps surging. So there's got to be a tail out, as I said. But having said that, I think we are fundamentally going to see the victim here be the consumer at the retail floor, and that's just what's going to happen, right? I think some retailers have already pushed back sort of what they're calling COVID surcharges onto the checkout. to try and get some cost recovery on this stuff. And, that's, we're going to see that. We'll see that in line with inflation as well. And I think it's all going to come hit our pocket pretty quickly.
I agree. And then, but back to the big boys. This is a really big boy, but I don't want to say the wrong company, but I think it's Home Depot. I might be wrong. They made their own I don't want to say the term might be wrong, but their own ships or their own boats or their own charter or something. I heard
chartered their own boats. Yeah.
So I don't know if obviously they're like the big boys, but
yeah. So look, I think the scary thing to the ocean freight market is there are very limited alternatives, right? So if you look at, hey, what are my alternatives if I don't put it on a boat?
Yeah.
There are none, unless you're a big boy and you can go afford to charter a plane, for example, which is what a lot of guys did, particularly last year in the PPE market.
Yeah.
Or alternatively, you go and charter a vessel. Now, some of the guys have chartered vessels and they're running, hundreds and hundreds of containers on these boats themselves. But jeepers, mate, that's even if you're a billion-dollar empire, multi-billion-dollar empire, that's still a very big risk to be taking to charter your own vessel, right? Just the insurance liability on it alone, let alone if there's an event or something bad happens or anything like that. So I don't think a lot of these bigger boys would actually have a lot of appetite to go and charter a vessel, but certainly those that have got the leverage and the volume and can fill the boat, then maybe that does make a lot more commercial sense. But certainly, I imagine at an executive roundtable that wouldn't be an option that many people would be keen to do, but they might have been forced into it. So I definitely know that the charter market has definitely seen a huge spike in the charter market for sure in ocean freight, but only very few can really entertain that as an option. There's been a few charters come out of South China where one central party has taken the charter and then has sort of downwardly sold space on the boat. And we are seeing a bit of that. But again, that's such limited supply, right? In the grand scheme of things, right, one boat, 2,500 containers, like it's drop in the water stuff, right? So it's never going to have like a macro market impact unless the entire market got together and said, hey, let's just tell all the big boys we're not going to put containers on them anymore and collectively go out and charter boats together. But, certainly that, something's going to have to change, right? There's got to be certainly going to have to be a lot more supply put on the water. That's become clear, right? So who's responsible for that supply? Maybe that supply will come through the charter avenue, or maybe it will come more through the big boys actually starting to release more of their fleet and bringing more new fleet online as well.
Yeah. So, you must, I've heard it a little bit from our community and a little bit myself, and then my factory partner, like he has clients, like you said, I think people are just paying because either whether it's Amazon or any retail, if you don't have product to sell, you don't have a business. If you're out of stock, what are you going to?
It's a real double-edged sword, right? And I think a lot of businesses would probably take the position that is, like any period of business, there are highs and lows, right? And this is probably just a period and a snapshot in time. I think what's scary is people don't quite realize the snapshot's going to go on for some time, and that snapshot, how long can you last is really the question. So for your small guys, certainly I'd say a pretty limited runway. For your bigger guys, they might start to make bigger strategic decisions around around their supply chain. They might change their production point, for example. They might decide to produce in a different market rather than producing in China.
True.
They might start front loading, producing way more than they need to, and then just bringing it into the market to evade sort of almost a hedge against further price increases. So there are sort of a number of different, I guess, strategies that the bigger boys will start applying. But certainly, man, this is a long road ahead, and it's scary to think how many will actually survive. But if you're just a small Amazon seller, man, the question is, do you keep yourself relevant? Do you keep yourself online and just accept you're losing on every sale? Or alternatively, do you accept lower margins? Or do you just say, you know what, we're going to ride it out for as long as we can?
I think the thought process is, like you said, like survive this. And then it makes you think of the Forrest Gump shrimp boats, and some reason he was out there in a hurricane and they survived and all the other shrimp boats sunk and then he became rich, So Of course, and obviously in business,
Hey, look, I think,
you can survive, right? I mean, sometimes just staying in the game, not even winning, but just staying in the game, right? Because, we've talked about this in the show
100%.
and at events, relaunching a product it's not so easy, of course, if you're out of stock and then you try to relaunch it, I mean, it can happen, but the trick, the goal, I mean, any product business is stay in stock, right? At least as much as possible to keep the
and I think that's probably at the moment, that's certainly the strategy at the moment. If you look at least from our side and what we can see in terms of our customer base and what they're doing, that they are just choosing that, right? Choosing to stay on shelf, choosing to be, to not lose momentum. Also, I guess you also have to look at it on the other side of this as well, right? Like, whilst there's huge supply chain disruptions and rising prices, the great thing is there's demand, and so you kind of can't forget, just on one side of the equation you have some trouble, you've actually got on the other side of the equation you've actually got some real benefit as well, right? So I think like just taking a balanced view is obviously what a lot of businesses are trying to do, but hey, look, the world's in a pretty good shape given the context around demand, so for sort of products and consumer products. So I think we should kind of count our blessings in some senses that, everyone could be sitting at home, not doing anything, not spending any money. But in actual fact, we've got, e-commerce pretty much fast forwarded 3 years, 3 to 5 years, and shipping costs have increased, sure. But hey, consumers still want it, still get it to them, stay relevant. And I reckon you're right, Mike. You come out at the end of this, you could be the last man standing on the shrimp boat,
Yeah. I mean,
with because plenty of businesses are going to fall by the wayside, right? So, you got to, I think, a lot of businesses are probably staying pretty close to that and figuring out, hey, what's this going to look like if in our category, like where are we going to come out on this? We might come out, it might be third at the moment. We might come out first in 18 months or in 2 years. So yeah, hang in there, hang tight.
Yeah. I mean, the other side, I don't want to sound, negative, but I mean, I have talked about it. I mean, I'm starting to help, just more and more aggregators, these roll-up funds. And it makes you think like bigger is better scale, right? I mean, even before COVID, if you ship more, especially LCL to FCL, right? Like if you fill a whole container, it's usually better economics than sharing. So, I've been noticing more sellers willing or interested to maybe take a number now, right? Get out while they can or while it's good. Or, I mean, it's overheating. Everybody, there's huge competition to buy out these sellers and get these brands. So that's another side of the story too. There's a lot of
absolutely right. I mean, timing is everything, right? So if you've built a great business and there's demand for it now through an aggregator, whether it be you mean kind of someone like an FBA like aggregator, right? Someone going around purchasing up a whole bunch of So like that's a big shift in the market, right? So there's some big private equity backed companies that are coming in, right, and doing some pretty big things, and actually ironically probably giving Amazon a bit of a run for their money in some senses.
It's true. And then of course they're dealing with like antitrust, or a lot of the US is pushing, Europe I think too is pushing Amazon to be a little bit too predatory, with their tactics, So that's another side of that. But yeah, I think we're getting towards the end of this discussion. I mean, is there light at the end of the tunnel? You're saying, I mean, I don't know. I was told or heard maybe after the Christmas rush, maybe after Q3, early Q4.
Yeah.
That's what I've been hearing from a few people.
Yeah, I think from our perspective, and look, certainly like we're lucky we get to talk to lots and lots of people in the industry, and we get to talk to a wide range of our partners and freight forwarders and carriers directly, and that's always kind of get good insight from them. I think at least from how we see it, I think 2021 is going to be much the same. I think we're going to get through. We might start seeing a little bit of pressure alleviating on the container shortage at the back end of Q3. So I think we might see a little bit of a better situation there. But in terms of where those price points sit, I think we're probably going to see most of that going into the rest of the year. Obviously, we're also coming into peak season, so I'd expect more surcharges to be lumped in. Certainly, don't expect all your Christmas presents ready on Christmas Day. Some might be a little bit late. That'd be the other little caveat I'd give to lots of mums and dads out there is, plan early, get your gifts sorted early. Walmart might run out of your favorite toy or something like that. So you might need to just kind of be thinking a little bit further ahead, just given the major shortages and delay of getting product into these markets. And then look, in terms of next year, I do think probably we'll see a bit of a reduction next year in 2022, and then hopefully, sort of see what happens after that. But I certainly feel like we're sort of at or near the peak at the moment. That's at least my feeling. And then, I think hopefully it'll ease off a little bit coming into Q1 2022 when demand's a little bit lower. And also, by that time you'd sort of hope that the carriers have had their fun and maybe they'll start to realize that they need to, maybe, try and help resolve this problem for shippers a little bit by trying to help drag the price down a bit.
Like you said, it's
really interesting times ahead.
It's just going to pass to the consumer, right? I mean, if you got to pay 10x on your shipping fees, obviously, like you said,
and you got no control over it.
Yeah, and you have no.
I mean, look, it's no different to raw material cost increases or shortage of raw materials. All of these things start to play up a little bit as well. So I think certainly the consumer's going to feel this. But I certainly don't think there's light at the end of the tunnel immediately. But we might be back to somewhat normality maybe at the end of next year and into 23. Is kind of my view. But certainly we'll never be back at pre-COVID prices. Unfortunately, I don't think so. Get used to maybe paying up around that sort of $5,000 a container rather than the $1,500, $2,000 that you were historically used to.
Insane. I mean, I can remember even less. Obviously, I guess there's always going to be inflation or price increases, but geez.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks.
But you're going to probably feel it a lot more, just given these really obvious increases and such significant increases as well.
So Nick, I know you shared a little bit at the beginning, but maybe we can hear more about your business and how you could help. Hopefully there's ways lots, you've been doing this since pre-COVID, right? You're gonna be saying, I did this before COVID.
I was saying to
so how can you help people out?
I was saying to some of the guys in the team the other day that we're kind of working through a really unprecedented time in terms of what's going on, right? And I think we'll certainly look back on this time and I think we'll think, hey, we actually we navigated all of these situations. We lived through force majeure and type events which are always in contracts but never really happen. And as a result we've seen a real seismic shift in the way that the market operates and even people's understanding of it too, right? Like even shippers' understanding of it historically didn't really need to know too much about it, right? It was easy. It was a fairly easy way to trade. Now it's more complicated. There's more pieces. So I think from our perspective, certainly we're happy. We're not. It's obviously not an easy time as a provider. Certainly under a lot of pressure to make sure we find the right solutions for customers, but also that we continue to try and be adaptable and work around the challenges too, right? I think what we've seen where we've had success is we're an operator so we operate as a 4PL provider. So we sit kind of above all of the providers in the market, almost like your control tower type provider. And as a result of that, we have access to a wide range of partners and carriers that we can work with, and we get a very nice sort of cross-section spread of what's going on. But also we're a lot more solution-driven in terms of being able to piece something together in a pretty difficult climate. So I think that's kind of been a real differentiator for us in the last year or so in particularly as this thing is kind of throwing more curveballs at businesses. But yeah, like I said earlier, we're a logistics company based out of Hong Kong, servicing sort of, customers based all around the world, but predominantly with production in the East. So we have sort of, I guess, like homebound operations in Vietnam, in Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Australia. And then we obviously have South China, that when we then sort of trade back to the West. So for us, customers across the spectrum from selling into retail right through to selling directly online. We sort of work directly with those customers to sort of build out the most suitable logistics solution. And then once it's sort of designed and built, we then kind of support and run the operational delivery of it. And then in addition to that, we have some software that supports our business across our sort of B2B and our B2C services, so customers can kind of get a full view of what's going on across their logistics. So look, any small business or enterprise company is kind of who we work with. We don't sort of specialize just in small business or just in big business. We certainly have a nice wide sort of cross section on our books at the moment. And we're really nimble, we're small and relatively small, and we're adaptable, and I think that's certainly a key feature of our service. So if you're keen to reach out for a coffee or a Zoom call or whatever, or a WeChat, whatever you fancy, we can do it. And hopefully you found today a little bit insightful in terms of the realities of the ocean freight market in 2021.
Yeah, thanks, Nick, for your candidness. And yeah, that's, I think the people you work with, you're always very, it's straight up and helpful and tell us how it is, which I think people appreciate. So what's the best place people could find out more or reach out?
Sure. So you can visit us at www.cviplogistics.com.
Okay.
Alternatively, you can find me on LinkedIn at Nick Bartlett. That's Bartlett. Or you can get me on WeChat at nbartlett1.
Okay, perfect. That's great.
Awesome.
A lot of ways. Thanks so much, Nick. And
cool, man.
I hope to see you in real life one day.
Yeah.
I mean, all of us, right? We're all going crazy here.
It's gonna be weird when I start seeing my colleagues up in China again. But it'll be nice to get back on the train and get back on the plane down to Vietnam and Australia and into the UK and the US.
I mean, it's been hard for our all of our community. We're all travelers. That's by definition. It's
all nomads, right? The nomad lifestyle is
all of
become a bit redundant because everyone's become a nomad. Everyone just works from home.
All right,
effectively, right?
Yeah,
cool, man. Thanks a lot for your time, Mike, and it's always a pleasure supporting GFA as well. Well done.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. It's just me on audio now. I prefer audio to chat a little bit, but like I said during the show, I've also been negatively affected, trying to launch a new brand with a Thailand factory. I think I might have mentioned this in some of our community shows, our masterminds. But yeah, I mean, it's like over a value of $20,000, which is a nice car, right? You could buy a car for that, So down payment maybe for houses and things like that. This is not small money here, and that's one container. Like Nick says, what's the value of the goods in the container? If this is, I just think the consumer is going to pay, right? I mean, we as sellers or business owners might be able to absorb it for a little while, but if it keeps going, it's got to get passed on to the buyer, the end buyer, the people in their home, trying to buy this product off Amazon or off their website or in a store or wherever. It's happening to everybody. So I don't know I'd love to hear what you've been doing and how you've been dealing with it. We have to survive. We have to continue to do business. Product-based business means you have to have product. If you run out of product, as you know, back orders, out of stock, listings, losing their, ranking and velocity and etc. I think we're going to have to figure out a way, and I think probably the way is increased price. Some people I've talked to have increased price considerably. Again, it really depends on the value of your product. How much is the total value of that container? What is your, margin? How much profit are you making on this even before COVID, before these shipping fees? And, hopefully you can I think you're just going to have to move your prices more, right? And maybe your competitors will not do that, and maybe they'll lose money, go out of business, or go out of stock. Especially with Christmas coming, I know it's a very stressful time for all of us. And let's try to stay positive. That's what we try to do at the community here at GFA, and especially our membership at GFA VIP. We have these masterminds, and we try our best to, get through these tough times together, because that's the best way is knowing you're not alone. Even listening to this show, hearing Nick, hearing me, stay motivated, stay positive. I think a lot of us are dealing with massive pressure, like I've said it throughout the show. I have a lot of my belongings in Philippines still, that I couldn't even move out of my own apartment that I was staying in. A lot of my belongings are in Thailand. Now I have products for Amazon brand stuck in a warehouse of a factory in Thailand for a product we're trying to launch, because it's just too expensive to send 2 or 3 containers at 20-something thousand US each. It's just crazy. It's just really crazy. So, realize that this is happening to everyone, and you can laugh at me if you like, if it makes you feel better. Maybe that'll be worth it, you know? I mean, I don't mind laugh at me or laugh, you know. Try to stay lighthearted. And I hope to see you in an event one day, or I hope to hear your stories after this where you come out bigger and better than ever, right? I think whatever doesn't kill you only makes you stronger, and I just feel like this show's a topic we had to do sooner than later, and I appreciate you for listening all the way through in this blah blah blah, and I truly wish you the best, you know, even as a, you know, maybe you never bought our events or our memberships or whatever. I'm doing this free podcast to maybe help motivate you, help push you along, and I hope that's what today's show might have done, or maybe it scared the heck out of you, I don't know. But we have to face our fears, and, you know, we have to be positive-minded, and the law of attraction. If you think positive, positive things will come. Let's think positive. Thank you for listening. globalfromasia.com/ocean-freight-madness. Take care.
To get more info about running an international business, please visit our website at www.globalfromasia.com. That's www.globalfromasia.com. Also, be sure to subscribe to our iTunes feed. Thanks for tuning in.